And what about Elon? Is he an anomaly? Is he a hero? Is he someone they never saw coming? And how much longer will he be able to, be this light for free speech, or will that be shut down sooner than later?
Elon is a truly fascinating, singular, great man of history in all of this. And I wrote a piece in, I don't know, I forget if it was Newsweek or Town Hall, right when the Twitter acquisition was announced, and I called it the Deus ex machina. It's sort of a Deus ex machina for Elon Musk. The Deus ex machina is this figure from the sky who falls out of a plot in order to solve all the plot's problems magically. It's sort of known as a cheap trick in screenwriting, when the hero's in impossibly big trouble and some cheap, the writers can't figure out how to solve this thing in a realistic way. So something falls out of the sky to save him at the last minute that's completely unrealistic and, descends on the Greek stage. And, Elon Musk basically was the sort of Deus ex machina of the free speech story in many ways. Suddenly, somehow, the world's richest man falls out of the sky with $44 billion to save us from Yoel Roth and the CIA and the State Department and the Pentagon. I did a piece through our Foundation for Freedom Online, the sort of 10 greatest free speech hits of everything that Elon Musk did in 2023. I mean, it's unbelievable, from firing the trust and safety teams, reinstating, all these banned accounts, creating legal funds for people who were fired from their jobs for tweeting on Twitter, telling advertisers, GFY, moving towards a subscription model to create a sort of economic self-sustainability, with all of this. There's so much that Elon has done. And there's also a kind of amazing irony from it. I myself, took a long time for me to feel like Elon, there's a tremendous amount of, initial early stage optimism about what Elon might be able to do. And it took a long time for me to sort of come over to being able to even entertain optimism on that, because I'd seen so many free speech activists and optimists in that world have all these brilliant ideas about how they're going to save free speech, and then bonk, the State Department hits them in the head with a $60 billion threat of an advertiser boycott. I'd been writing my book when Mark Zuckerberg gave that San Jose speech about free, it's time for free speech to come back after 2.5 years of censorship. And then they bonked Mark Zuckerberg, and all it took was a $60 billion hit over a single quarter to Facebook's revenue for him to become, a number one censorship zealot over again. So, I was writing at the time of Elon's acquisition, this guy, may mean well, but he has no idea what he's up against in terms of the size of the apparatus of the rattlesnake that he has just unslumbered with this acquisition. And there's also the great irony of the fact that many of Elon's portfolio assets that put him in the position to be the world's wealthiest man themselves were either relied on government subsidies in the beginning or are essential instruments of statecraft for the U.S. government. You can argue that the lithium and the cobalt that they're relied on for renewable batteries are only made possible because of the activities of the foreign policy establishment in making those supply lines accessible, so that they can be used by Tesla and as part of the green energy revolution. There was lots of subsidies, government subsidies that went into those at the early stage level of business. SpaceX is an absolutely essential company to U.S. statecraft. Something like 1 to 2/3 of all low Earth satellites, I think, are SpaceX. They figure heavily in telecommunications. This is something that I ran into at the State Department. SpaceX always had a seat at the table when it came to State Department activities in telecom. Things like Starlink are essential for U.S. operations in places where, there's not organic, high-speed internet. And So you got the Pentagon, the State Department, and the CIA dependent on Elon Musk properties. You have, to some extent, especially in the early days, Elon Musk properties reliant on the foreign policy establishment. It seemed to me like this was a huge liability for someone like Elon Musk to be able to do free speech activity, because he's got all these vulnerabilities in the other properties that could be threatened by the blob. But in a certain respect, that relationship almost runs in reverse, and you could argue, because if Elon Musk became the world's wealthiest person running a lemonade stand, you could argue that because the lemonade stand is not so essential to the Pentagon, to the State Department, the CIA, they could threaten that business and get him to do anything he wants. But because they actually need Elon Musk, there's only so far they can sort of push him before it says, okay, well, you don't want renewable batteries for the green revolution. Okay, you don't want Starlink. You don't want SpaceX. Now, the national security state could at that point up the ante even more by invoking something like CFIUS, which is a law that basically allows you to nationalize private companies on national security grounds. But then what would happen if CFIUS were invoked to nationalize SpaceX or to nationalize Tesla? Could any corporation on planet Earth choose the U.S. over China or over another country? If some of the largest corporations in the world can be swallowed whole by the U.S. government, it would undermine 2.5 centuries of U.S. statecraft trying to distinguish free market and free enterprise and the safety of investments in the U.S. As the linchpin of our private enterprise statecraft. So there's a little bit of a Gordian knot they're tied in terms of how far they can push Elon Musk. I think the ideal situation for them is a kind of corporate regime change where Elon is essentially simply, forced out of Twitter. But these folks themselves at the Stanford Internet Observatory, my foundation published a bunch of their internal discussions where they would talk about how one of the things that might be done in order to coerce Elon Musk to censor Twitter is to go to foreign governments, like go to Germany and, work with potentially the German foreign minister there to put pressure on Tesla's gigafactory there, because that is the industrial sort of base of Europe. It's where a lot of the production capacities for Tesla are. And Germany is also the center of content moderation in Europe. It's actually where the State Department first got the got the EU to pass these censorship laws in 2017 with Germany's NetzDG law. So there's a lot of state capture that the blob has in Germany. If they can get Germany to put pressure on Tesla in order to coerce Elon Musk to change the content moderation terms of service policies in order to censor the elections there in Europe, to stop the rise of right-wing populist parties. These are all things that the blob has sketched out as part of their plans. Whether they can actually execute them is the other side of the story, because now Germany is partially reliant on that giga Berlin factory for their own jobs and for their own prosperity of their own workers, who at the same time are being squeezed by the State Department in the natural gas story because they've been forced to sanction Russia. And there's the strangeness of the Nord Stream pipelines being shut off. So there's a complex interplay, and how that resolves remains to be seen.
Yeah, he's almost too big to fail somehow, but it's not stopping them from filing lots of counterattacks and lawsuits in many different states and many different industries there. I guess it remains to be seen if they can find some way to control him. But right now, he's managed to continue doing what he wants to do with this platform. And it's been huge. It's been huge to have an example of what the world could look like, versus what the world does look like. And I think it's allowed a lot more people to be bold. And funny enough, Mike, in their normal everyday speech, and even their speech at places like work, knowing that someone's saying it on Twitter, just keeps people and reminds people that freedom of speech is a thing. I think it's hard to overemphasize the fact that this ex machina deus figure came in and saved us all. It'll be interesting to see how history looks out. Go ahead.
Just one quick thing. They are absolutely trying the death by 1,000 paper cuts, though, in the interim. Right. Without a knockout blow, they are still trying to capacity cripple him. If they can reduce him to a double-digit billionaire instead of a triple-digit billionaire, I think that would go a long way in terms of their ability to create leverage. So there are 7 different legal attacks that the Biden administration alone, 7 different regulatory agencies have all filed lawsuits, including basically punishing SpaceX for not hiring enough illegal immigrants. I mean, these are the sort of things that a U.S. company being fined millions of dollars potentially for not hiring people who are here illegally. These are the kind of tactics they're stooping to, absent a knockout blow. But I'm sorry if you want to continue.
When you look at, I haven't gone too deep in the compensation lawsuit, but it seems really flaky to me. And it now looks a lot more like what they're doing to Trump. Where again, they're just using it as lawfare, which my good friend Jim Rickards talks about, using the law for warfare purposes. And then some of the other ways that Elon goes to explain some of the trials he was at. He was on Rogan last time. He said the jury was unanimous. He's like, they had nothing on me. The SEC had nothing on me, but this is the way it works. If the SEC is successful in taking down a big dog, then they get the job at the cushy law firm. I'm sure you know about it. And he was explaining it all. But to the public, through the mainstream media, he's still the bad guy doing these supposed bad things. But it looks like a way of attacking him. And like you said, bringing him down to double digits might clip his wings. Although he's such an anomaly, that would probably fire him up some more. So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public. And he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets. Get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm gonna tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone. Also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline. I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core.
It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up. If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you gonna do? What's the choice that you're going to make?